8. Place Calcutta, year 1897, March or April. Today the disciple came to meet Swamiji at Bagh Bazaar, but found him ready for a visiting engagement. Well, come along with me, were the words with which Swamiji accosted him as he went downstairs, and the disciple followed. They then put themselves into a hired cab which proceeded southwards. Disciple: Sir, where are you going to visit, please? Swamiji: Well, come with me and you will see. Thus, keeping back the destination from the disciple, Swamiji opened the following conversation as the carriage reached the Bidon street. One does not find any real endeavor in your country to get the women educated. You, the men, are educating yourselves to develop your manhood. But what are you doing to educate and advance those who share all your happiness and misery, who lay down their lives to serve you in your homes? Disciple: Why, sir, just see how many schools and colleges here sprung up nowadays for our women, and how many of them are getting degrees of BA and MA. Swamiji: But all that is in the Western style. How many schools have been started on your own national lines, in the spirit of your own religious ordinances? But alas, such a system does not obtain even among the men of your country, what to speak of women. It is seen from the official statistics that only 3 or 4% of the people in India are educated, and not even 1% of the women. Otherwise, how could the country come to such a fallen condition? How can there be any progress of the country without the spread of education, the dawning of knowledge? Even no real effort or exertion in the cause is visible among the few in your country who are the promise of the future, you who have received the blessings of education. But know for certain that absolutely nothing can be done to improve the state of things unless there is spread of education first among the women and the masses. And so I have it in my mind to train up some brahmacharins and brahmacharinis, the former of whom will eventually take the vow of sannyasa and try to carry the light of education among the masses from village to village throughout the country, while the latter will do the same among women. But the whole work must be done in the style of our own country. Just as centers have to be started for men, so also centers have to be started for teaching women. Brahmacharinis of education and character should take up the task of teaching at these different centers. History and the Puranas, housekeeping and the arts, the duties of home life and principles that make for the development of an ideal character have to be taught with the help of modern science. And the women students must be trained up in ethical and spiritual life. We must see to their growing up as ideal matrons of home in time. The children of such mothers will make further progress in the virtues that distinguish the mothers. It is only in the homes of educated and pious mothers that great men are born. And you have reduced your women to something like manufacturing machines. Alas, for heaven's sake, is this the outcome of your education? The uplift of the women, the awakening of the masses must come first, and then only can any real good come about for the country, for India. Near Chor Bagan, Swamiji gave it out to the disciple that the foundress of the Mahakali Pathashala, the Tapaswini Mataji, ascetic mother, had invited him to visit her institution. When our carriage stopped at its destination, 3 or 4 gentlemen greeted Swamiji and showed him up to the first door. There the Tapaswini mother received him standing. Presently she escorted him into one of the classes, where all the maidens stood up in greeting. At a word from Mataji, all of them commenced reciting the Sanskrit meditation of Lord Shiva with proper intonation. Then they demonstrated at the instance of the mother how they were taught the ceremonies of worship in their school. After watching all this with much delight and interest, Swamiji proceeded to visit the other classes. After this, Mataji sent for some particular girl and asked her to explain before Swamiji the first verse of the 3rd canto of Kalidasa's Raghavamsham, which she did in Sanskrit. Swamiji expressed his great appreciation of the measure of success Mataji had attained by her perseverance and application in the cause of diffusing education among women. In reply, she said with much humility, "In my service to my students, I look upon them as the Divine Mother. Well, in starting the school, I have neither fame nor any other object in view." Being asked by Mataji, Swamiji recorded his opinion about the institution in the visitor's book, the last line of which was, "The movement is in the right direction." After saluting Mataji, Swamiji went back to his carriage, which then proceeded towards Bagh Bazaar, while the following conversation took place between Swamiji and the disciple. Swamiji, how far is the birthplace of this venerable lady? She has renounced everything of her worldly life, and yet how diligent in the service of humanity. Had she not been a woman, could she ever have undertaken the teaching of women in the way she is doing? What I saw here was all good, but that some male householders should be pitchforked as teachers is a thing I cannot approve of. The duty of teaching in the school ought to devolve in every respect on educated widows and brahmacharinis. It is good to avoid in this country any association of men with women's schools. Disciple. But sir, how would you get now in this country learned and virtuous women like Gargi, Khanna or Lilavati? Swamiji. Do you think women of the type don't exist now in the country? Still on this sacred soil of India, this land of Sita and Savitri, among women may be found such character, such spirit of service, such affection, compassion, contentment, and reverence as I could not find anywhere else in the world. In the West, the women did not very often seem to me to be women at all. They appeared to be quite the replicas of men, driving vehicles, drudging in offices, attending schools, doing professional duties. In India alone, the sight of feminine modesty and reserve soothes the eye. With such materials of great promise, you could not, alas, work out their uplift. You did not try to infuse the light of knowledge into them. If they get the right sort of education, they may well turn out to be the ideal women in the world. Disciple. Do you think, sir, the same consummation would be reached through the way Mataji is educating her students? These students would soon grow up and get married and would presently shade into the likeness of all other women of the common run. So I think if these girls might be made to adopt brahmacharya, then only could they devote their lives to the cause of the country's progress and attain to the high ideals preached in our sacred books. Swamiji. Yes, everything will come about in time. Such educated men are not yet born in this country who can keep their girls unmarried without fear of social punishment. Just see how before the girls exceed the age of 12 or 13, people hasten to give them away in marriage out of this fear of their social equals. Only the other day, when the age of consent bill was being passed, the leaders of society massed together millions of men to send up the cry, "We don't want the bill." Had this been in any other country, far from getting up meetings to send forth a cry like that, people would have hidden their heads under their roofs in shame, that such a calumny would yet stain their society. Disciple. But sir, I don't think the ancient lawgivers supported this custom of early marriage without any rhyme or reason. There must have been some secret meaning in this attitude of theirs. Swamiji. Well, what might have been this secret meaning, please? Disciple. Take it for instance, in the first place, that if the girls are married at an early age, they may come over to their husband's home to learn the particular ways and usages of the family from the early years of their life. They may acquire adequate skill in the duties of the household under the guidance of their parents-in-law. In the homes of their own parents, on the other hand, there is the likelihood of grown-up daughters going astray. But married early, they have no chance of thus going wrong, and over and above this, such feminine virtues as modesty, reserve, fortitude, and diligence are apt to develop in them. Swamiji. In favor of the other side of the question again, it may be argued that early marriage leads to premature childbearing, which accounts for most of our women dying early. Their progeny also, being of low vitality, go to swell the ranks of our country's beggars. For if the physique of the parents be not strong and healthy, how can strong and healthy children be born at all? Married a little later and bred in culture, our mothers will give birth to children who would be able to achieve the real good of the country. The reason why you have so many widows in every home lies here, in this custom of early marriage. If the number of early marriages declines, that of widows is bound to follow suit. Disciple. But sir, it seems to me, if our women are married late in life, they are apt to be less mindful of their household duties. I have heard that the mothers-in-law in Calcutta very often do all the cooking, while the educated daughters-in-law sit idle with red paint round their feet. But in our East Bengal, such a thing is never allowed to take place. Swamiji. But everywhere under the sun you find the same blending of the good and the bad. In my opinion, society in every country shapes itself out of its own initiative. So we need not trouble our heads prematurely about such reforms as the abolition of early marriage, the remarriage of widows, and so on. Our part of the duty lies in imparting true education to all men and women in society. As an outcome of that education, they will of themselves be able to know what is good for them and what is bad, and will spontaneously eschew the latter. It will not be then necessary to pull down or set up anything in society by coercion. Disciple: what sort of education do you think is suited to our women? Swamiji: religion, arts, science, housekeeping, cooking, sewing, hygiene. The simple essential points in these subjects ought to be taught to our women. It is not good to let them touch novels and fiction. The Mahakali Pathashala is to a great extent moving in the right direction, but only teaching rites of worship won't do. Their education must be an eye-opener in all matters. Ideal characters must always be presented before the view of the girls to imbue them with a devotion to lofty principles of selflessness. The noble examples of Sita, Savitri, Damavanti, Lilavati, Khana, and Meera should be brought home to their minds, and they should be inspired to mold their own lives in the light of these. Our cab now reached the house of the late Babu Balaram Bose at Bagh Bazar. Swamiji alighted from it and went upstairs. There he recounted the whole of his experience at the Mahakali Pathashala to those who had assembled there to see him. Then, while discussing what the members of the newly formed Ramakrishna mission should do, Swamiji proceeded to establish by various arguments the supreme importance of the gift of learning and the gift of knowledge. Turning to the disciple, he said, "Educate, educate. Nanyav pantha vidyate yanaya. Than this, there is no other way." And referring in banter to the party who do not favor educational propaganda, he said, "Well, don't go into the party of Prahladas." Asked as to the meaning of the expression, he replied, "Oh, haven't you heard?" Tears rushed out of the eyes of Prahlada at the very sight of the first letter, K, of the alphabet, as it reminded him of Krishna. So how could any studies be proceeded with? But then the tears in Prahlada's eyes were tears of love, while your fools affect tears in fright. Many of the devotees are also like that. All of those present burst out laughing on hearing this, and Swami Yogananda said to Swamiji, "Well, once you have the urge within towards anything to be done, you won't have any peace until you see the utmost done about it. Now what you have a mind to have done shall be done, no doubt."